Hello everyone, welcome back to the Geek Plan. I'm Jeff, and today we're going to talk about the newest thing that's come out of Star Wars, that Palpatine was a clone in The Rise of Skywalker, as revealed in the Rise of Skywalker novelization. So the novelization was released at a convention in Chicago this past weekend. They were selling it early to convention goers, and people got a hold of it and were taking pictures of the images from the book. And the first one, I think, to tweet about it was Star Wars Theory. And then he also showed his source. The source actually had the book in hand and was taking pictures of the pages. So now we're going to take a look at what it says. Star Wars confirms Palpatine was a clone in Rise of Skywalker. The novelization of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker finally reveals the truth about how Palpatine survived. He was a clone all along. Not really. He was a clone because they decided to do this in a novelization. It was not mentioned in the film at all, and I don't think they even had an intention of doing it in the film. They were not going for this. They never planned this. This was to give an explanation to basically fill in a plot hole. Let's read, shall we? The novelization of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker confirms Palpatine was a clone. The Disney era of Star Wars has frequently used novelizations to tie up loose ends from the films themselves. Now, if we relate this to The Last Jedi novelization, they actually fill in some holes about Rey being so powerful. They talk about how when her and Kylo Ren touched hands in their forced Skype call, they basically shared memories, and Rey downloaded every bit of training that she could from his mind because she saw everything he had ever done with the Force and lightsaber training, and everything he had learned came to her. So that's how she learned. She was like some kind of Force download method is what it was. Super weird, but look it up. In the case of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, the film had a startling number of plot holes. That's definitely true. That writer, Ray Carson, will surely be hoping to navigate. I'm really glad I don't have her job. Marketing for Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker had emphasized the unexpected return of Emperor Palpatine, and moviegoers were eager to learn how Darth Sidious had survived his death in Return of the Jedi. You know, when he fell down the shaft, exploded, and then the Death Star exploded. That death. Remarkably, the film avoided explaining it at all because they didn't have an idea what they were doing. The Emperor hand-waved the question away with a quote from Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. He
observed, "It's generally been assumed Carson's novelization will shed a little more light on the matters." Now, also, he mentions in The Rise of Skywalker that he has died before. That's what made everybody think that he was the real Palpatine, because he said he had already died before or died once before or something like that. This definitely doesn't make that make any more sense. Although the novelization isn't officially on sale until March 17th, Lucasfilm Publishing decided to sell advance copies at this weekend's C2E2 in Chicago. Passages have begun appearing online. The book does indeed confirm that the Emperor's spirit has been transferred into a clone body. When Kylo Ren arrives on Exegol and encounters Palpatine, he looks closely at the machinery the Emperor is physically attached to and recognizes it from his studies of the Clone Wars. He then deduces Palpatine's dark side spirit is too strong for the clone body and is causing serious degeneration to it. So in my opinion, in the movie, it looked like the machines that he was hooked up to were there to keep him alive until he sucked the life force from the Force dyad that was Rey and Kylo Ren to gain his life back and become him again. This whole clone thing is just thrown in there so people will shut up, basically. So let's read the actual excerpt from the book. All the vials were empty of liquid save one, which was nearly depleted. Kylo peered closer. He'd seen this apparatus before. Sure. When he'd studied the Clone Wars as a boy. The liquid flowing into the living nightmare before him was fighting a losing battle to sustain the Emperor's putrid flesh. "What could you give me?" Kylo asked. Emperor Palpatine lived, after a fashion, and Kylo could feel in his very bones that his clone body sheltered the Emperor's actual spirit. It was an imperfect vessel, though. Unable to contain his immersed power, it couldn't last much longer. This basically was Dark Empire from the Expanded Universe. It's a comic series. Go look it up. Go check it out. I definitely recommend it. I actually just started reading it. I would recommend it. And the article goes on to mention that there are striking similarities between Palpatine's canon resurrection and his return in the old Expanded Universe. Like Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, Tom Veitch's Dark Empire miniseries saw Palpatine return, his spirit migrating to a clone body, and he constructed a vast army that incorporated sophisticated superweapons. George Lucas loved Dark Empire. He considered it the closest thing to his idea of a sequel trilogy and gave copies to Lucasfilm employees as a Christmas present. The key difference, however, is that in Dark Empire, the clone body was actually able to contain the Emperor's spirit, and was actually also, to add to that, it was actually a younger version of Palpatine as well. Exposure to the dark side of the Force has always had pronounced effect on a physical body, causing an advanced form of decay. That's why many Sith Lords appear cadaverous, because the stronger they become in the dark side, the more noticeable its effects. Of course, if you're playing like KOTOR or any games where you turn to the dark side, you'll notice as you go further down the dark path, your skin and your face starts to appear, like they say, a little bit like more like a cadaver. It's like pale and veiny and like dark circles under your eyes, and your eyes go yellow, of course, so you kind of have an appearance that your body is being eaten by the dark side. Palpatine is the greatest of all Sith, and it makes perfect sense that no mere clone body could contain his essence. The novelization subtly hints the Emperor has waited as long as he can, watching as the galaxy fell into chaos once again, but now has no choice but to reveal himself. His clone body is completely failing him, he's running out of regenerative formulas that have been keeping him alive all these years, and needs a new host. It's nice to have an explanation of sorts, but something of a shame it wasn't in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker itself. Of course it was. But that's because they didn't know what they were going to do with it. They didn't know this was going to be what they were going to include in the novelization. This was last minute. The novelization was supposed to come out the day after the movie was released. They pushed it back to March because they knew they needed to fill in plot holes. People were going to keep asking questions. And there's other things, if you go out and look from the book that people are posting online, that are also wrapping up other stories and filling in some other plot holes, which of course is what Disney does with their novelizations. They did with Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. That's just not how you do storytelling. We all know that. As people who know a good story, just a basic, simple story structure. You don't have massive plot holes in a film. We all know that JJ just brought back Palpatine because Snoke had been killed by Rian Johnson, because Rian Johnson had no idea what to do with Snoke. That's exactly what was going on. We all know that. It's not hard to figure that out. But it's a stupid explanation. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, to me, that machine that he was in made it look like they were trying to keep him alive instead of sustain this clone body, because Palpatine, if he was that strong in the Force and the dark side, his body would look like this if he didn't fall down and shaft, explode, and then be in a giant super weapon that also exploded. His body would have looked like that by now if he would have been alive that long, because his body had been deteriorating because of the dark side. Basically, in Episode 3, when he became full-blown Darth Sidious in the duel with Mace and with Anakin watching, he became that full-on dark side entity. That's when those effects started happening to his body. But, you know, Disney's going to do what they're going to do. We all know they're not handling Star Wars very well. I mean, we can tell that with the High Republic stuff. They're not listening to the fans. They're just insulting the fans instead of doing things to get the fans back in their good graces. But that is my video on this very, very, very lazy explanation from Disney Lucasfilm. They had to shove a plot hole fix into a book because they couldn't do it in their movies because they can't write scripts to save their lives. We all know that because the script for The Last Jedi and for The Rise of Skywalker were terrible, and The Force Awakens wasn't that great. It did well with what they had versus The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. Out of the three, that is definitely the strongest of the films. But to watch The Force Awakens now and realize that you have the other two movies to watch after it, it's not even worth watching again. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. My name is Jeff. This is The Geek Blend. If it's your first time here, we would love it if you would subscribe to the channel. Go back and check out some of our older videos. Leave a like on the video. It does help us out quite a bit. And really helps out if you would share the video or the channel. We are getting really, really close to 200 subscribers. Really close. Once we hit that 200 subscriber mark, we have a really awesome giveaway for you all. We really do. So if you want to help us get to that 200 subscriber count and be able to enter the giveaway, definitely help us out by sharing the channel, telling your friends and family to subscribe, because we do more than just Star Wars stuff. We play games on here. We do beer on here. We got a couple other things in the works. We do our Netflix series. So there's all kinds of different things that are coming and that we also do on the channel. So definitely check all that stuff out. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'm Jeff. This is The Geek Blend. And if you geek about it, we'll speak about it. See you guys next time.